Welcome to Scuba Bob's Ocean Quest, an underwater adventure promoting conservation and the enhancement of waterways around the world. Scuba Bob has over 35 years experience in this liquid world and over 7,000 dives.
He is passionate about educating our audience on the marine crisis our planet is in. We lose over 30 species of life each day to extinction.
Come with us as we join with others on new expeditions as we bring the inner space into the living rooms of our audiences. Our goal is to replace ignorance with knowledge and greed with compassion. The oceans provide 75% of our oxygen and controls our weathers and provide us with valuable pharmaceuticals. The marine life provides millions with food and nourishment around the world. 50% of the world's population lives in or near the oceans.
It is our hope that by taking the camera lens underwater, we can help our audiences love these mysterious animals.
So please come with us as we expose you to the awesome beauty, mysteries, and adventures the oceans have to offer.
In today's episode, we will be exploring Vortex Springs.
Vortex Springs is 90 miles east of Pensacola, Florida, in a town called Ponce de Leon, Florida. This drive took 10 hours from Houston, Texas.
Welcome to Vortex Springs.
We made it. This is a place to check in, rent and buy equipment, and get supplies.
The dive shop was ready for us, friendly, and had all the recommendations and equipment we needed.
Vortex is a round sinkhole that is 69 degrees year-round with great visibility.
The dive shop and fill station is within walking distance from the spring.
The now familiar red and white dive flag was invented in the early 1950s by Denzel James Dockery from Michigan. In the course of his work, Dockery found that there was a need for a warning flag to keep boaters at a safe distance. The flag, as it is now, was born in 1956. Doc purchased Vortex Springs and declared it the home for the dive flag.
Bob arrived around 6 o'clock and set up the campsite and video equipment. The next morning, we woke to a beautiful day, set our gear, and headed to the docks.
After doing a safety check, we all got ready and were ready to get wet. Here we are, about to get into the water. And here we go. Splash. One diver in, and now it's my turn. Water temperature was 68 degrees, and I love my 5mm suit. Glenford said he was glad he had a 5mm suit along with a 5mm hooded vest.
The divers enjoyed the great visibility and looked forward to a great day of diving. This was one of the first dives following Glenford's open water checkout. He settled on the bottom and looked like a pro. He had a little problem with the dive light, but later it worked fine.
And off we go into the cavern system of Vortex Springs. The Florida cave systems are considered the best caves in the world. Cave diving can be practiced in different places around the world. I have dove in caves from Florida, the Bahamas, New Mexico, Texas, Mexico, Venezuela, Missouri, and Aruba.
Wait a second. What is that sign? It says stop. Prevent your death. Go no farther. Fact. More than 300 divers, including open water scuba instructors, have died in caves just like this one. Fact. You need training to dive. You need cave training and cave equipment to cave dive. Glenford is taking the warning to heart. He does not have cave dive training and knows this is not worth the risk. Fact: cave diving is a risk unless you're an experienced cave diver. There's nothing in this cave worth dying for, so do not go beyond this point without the experience in cave diving. This is a common perch found in the freshwater springs in and around Florida. They are considered a small game fish and like to steal your bait. By the way, they are cousins to the piranha.
I guess we need to be more respectful to the perch family.
This larger fish is called a carp. It is a bottom feeder.
In some parts of the world, they are considered a game fish. They're an oily fish and have a taste like a salmon. This is a cool feature of Vortex Springs. It's an underwater air chamber that allows divers to surface into and talk. This is a cool feature and is interesting activity to enjoy while at Vortex. While you talk, the sound echoes and amplifies. If you're a loud talker, please use your library voice. Otherwise, it will echo and be too loud.
The divers stayed close and were never out of visual sight. Good job!
Our camping supplies looked like we were prepared for the next apocalypse. We had 2 gas stoves, a barbecue grill, a propane burner, a table, 4 lanterns, 3 ice chests, 2 tents, and an army cot. I'm not sure, but I think Glenford had a portable jacuzzi.
There was a bathroom within walking distance with hot and cold showers. It's an understatement to say they were both prepared for comfortable sleeping conditions in 42 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures.
The campsite next to us had an unusual guest. It was a service animal, a lemur. He provided Adam with the ability to detect seizures.
Well, hello, Buddha. How's it going? Let's see. Is your name Buddha?
You're from Houston, right?
Yeah.
Did a lot
Scuba
of work in Houston.
Huh?
Did a lot of work in Houston.
Okay.
I can load up a video of him on the Houston News with the lemur.
Yeah,
Well, cool.
I was on the Houston News.
Really? What were you doing?
I was bar hopping.
Okay.
Just look up
They caught him downtown.
bar, lemur in a bar in Houston. And
Lemur in a bar. Well, how long have you had him?
since he was 2.5 weeks old, he'll be 8 in April.
Oh, wow. Wow. How cool. Are they smart?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Can detect a seizure, what, 5 minutes faster than a dog?
Okay, it's time to get back to diving. If you notice, this diver has 2 tanks on his back. This allows him to stay down longer, and in some cases, cave divers bring 4 tanks with them. In cave diving, running out of air is not an option.
Cave divers need and require specialized equipment with a backup to each piece of that equipment. This diver is equipped with over $10,000 worth of scuba equipment for cave diving. Glenford's scuba gear looks much more simple compared to the cave diver. He has some of the minimum amount of safety gear, like a light, safety sausage, alternate air regulator, cave reel dive computers, and proper thermal protection.
It looks like this perch is making sure that he has the right gear on. Looks like he does.
As you can see, the cave diver's light is much brighter than ordinary dive lights. If you notice, he has a hand grip for the light, so he always has control over his light. Caves have no ambient light, and therefore a powerful long-burning light is mandatory. Without a light such as this, you increase your chances that you're not going to make it out alive.
Even with the ambient light, Glenford is having difficulty on his directions. I can imagine what would happen in the cave without a light. Divers who enter caverns have ambient light and no obstructions to reaching the surface. Cave divers go in places with no ambient light and do not have direct access to the surface. Over the years, I've made numerous cavern dives. It's not my favorite form of diving, and I really don't want to be a cave diver. I prefer fish, coral, marine life, and I don't like that extra weight and specialized equipment.
For now, we can enjoy this dive and observe these awesome formations. As we look up, we see the air pockets and how they look like mirrors on the ceiling. Before you set off to make a cavern dive, you need to make sure that you have the specialty training in deep diving, night diving, and underwater navigation that is recommended. While on this dive, Glenford was able to complete his night dive and his deeper than 30-foot open water dive certifications. We discussed this prior to each dive. Overall, he seemed to do very well.
The cavern divers we're observing is checking out his equipment and improving his dive skills. He never did go through the locked gate. It seems though he was making sure he had control over his equipment. As we exited the cavern, we investigated the air pocket. Many times you'll see divers free diving down to the pocket. They need to remember that they need to exhale before going up because they're breathing pressurized air and can experience a lung expansion injury.
Look at the cool air pocket, looks like a mirror. As we enter the air pocket, you can see that they have the warning to exhale up, returning to the surface.
When you're on scuba, be sure not to allow snorkelers to breathe from your regulator. Snorkelers are not trained in Boyle's law of gas expansion and will suffer a lung expansion injury which can be fatal. This is some good information and we need to make sure that we follow it.
This is a plaque for Air Force pilot Captain George Kidd, who died in 1969 in the Vietnam War, and he served as a firefighter in Charlotte County, Florida.
The perch are real friendly here and they like our company.
There are over 50 great freshwater springs you can dive in Florida. Some of these include Jenny Springs, Vortex, Morrison, Devil's Den, Manatee, and Crystal River. Many of the rivers that feed out into the Gulf will have winter visitors called manatees. If you get a chance, you need to make that dive.
Because the marine life on this dive was limited to perch, and more perch, with a few bass and carp here and there, we thought it might be interesting to pay attention to these small creatures called freshwater snails.
Snails and mussels are the only mollusks that live not only in the saltwater sea, but also in the freshwaters on the continents, rivers, creeks, ponds, and lakes. There are over 55,000 mollusks or snail species known to science. The snails at the Vortex have gills, but many freshwater snails do not breathe using gills. Their gills are reduced, instead leaving to the snail the thin wall of the mantly cavity to assimilate oxygen through. This organ is called the snail's lung. So this type of snail is also referred to as pulmonate or lung snails. Those lung-breathing snails make the largest part of known gastropod species.
Before we surface for our third dive, we found two divers who are training to become cave divers. As you can see, they do not have their mask on, and they're using their hands to determine where they are. A dive reel is used to help guide them in and out of the cave.
Cave diving is underwater diving in water-filled caves. It may be seen as an extreme sport. Cave diving is generally considered to be a type of technical diving due to the lack of a free surface during large parts of the dive, and often involves decompression. Despite these risks, water-filled caves attract scuba divers, cavers, and speleologists due to their often unexplored nature, and present divers with a technical diving challenge. Underwater caves have a wide range of physical features and can contain animal life not found any other place in the world.
In one of my episodes called the J2 Expedition, I interviewed Jose Morales, expert cave diver, along with Bill Stone, who is the inventor of the Poseidon Mark V rebreather, dove to the deepest cave in the world. The expedition was 2 years in planning and took 2 months to complete. Jose and Bill spent over 2 weeks in the cave, which was over 1.5 miles deep and 5 miles long.
Imagine being 1.5 miles below the surface in the deepest and most remote location on Earth. Suddenly, you find that an underwater avalanche has covered you with rocks, boulders, and mud. Your mind is racing, and you struggle to escape and make your return to the surface, which is over 1.5 miles above you.
Before I went through the sand dune, I barely put my fin on top of it, and I was looking down at this raging avalanche of stuff going down, knowing that I had to go through that same place, and now that line is buried in such a way that there is a complete wall that I cannot see, but I can feel in front of me. And I have read about how people have died just in that same situation.
Thanks to his training, experience, and calm nature, he was able to make his way back to Bill and exit the cave, which took 2 weeks.
Basic cavern diver certification takes 2 weeks. The cave diver certification takes between 4 to 8 weeks. Upon completion of the training comes many cave dives to ensure you acquire the proper amount of experience to be considered a safe cave diver.
Jose has hundreds of cave dives and is considered to be one of the best cave divers in the world. Prior to our interview, he was delayed because he had to make an emergency cave dive in Puerto Rico to save some 17 people who were stuck in an underwater cave. Please do not enter a cave without proper training, equipment, and experience.
We hope you've enjoyed these dives. Next up will be a dusk and a night dive. And if we're lucky, we'll get a chance to encounter freshwater eels.
Now's the favorite part of my dive, freshwater eels. The sun is setting and we're now making our dusk dive at 60 feet underwater. Following the dusk dive, we'll be making a night dive when the eels come out to play.
This is the American eel, which is a fish found on the eastern coast of North America. The American eel has a slender snake-like body that is covered with a mucus layer, which makes the eel appear to be naked and slimy despite the presence of minute scales. A long dorsal fin runs from the middle of the back and is continuous with a similar ventral fin. Pelvic fins are absent, and relatively small pectoral fin can be found near the midline, followed by the head and the gill covers.
Unfortunately, new divers are prone to be afraid of marine life like the shark, eel, crab, and rays. The truth is, very few people are harmed by marine life while diving. So don't be afraid, just show respect.
The eel lives in freshwater and estuaries, and only leaves these habitats to enter the Atlantic Ocean to start its spawning migration to the Sargasso Sea. Spawning takes place far offshore where their eggs hatch. The female can lay up to 4 million buoyant eggs a year and dies after the egg laying.
It looks like we're having to chase the eel to see where he's going.
Looks like we are out of luck now. The eel has changed directions and is starting to chase Scuba Bob.
I wonder what kind of food they like to eat.
American eels are nocturnal, which means most of their feeding occurs at night. They have a keen sense of smell and depend on the scent of the food. Their prey includes fish, mollusks, bivalves, crustaceans, insect larvae, surface-dwelling insects, worms, frogs, and plants. I hope they do not have a pharyngeal jaw. That's a second set jaw with teeth, like the moray eel has.
I understand that that's where the directors got the idea for the alien creature in The Alien. Wait a second, where's Glenford? You don't think he had anything to do with this eel attack? He was a little sore about my snoring last night.
If you like this trip, you would enjoy the San Marcos River, where you can find the American eel and other critters, like the freshwater pond, also called freshwater lobster.
Wow, that looks good enough to eat. Remember to keep it safe, keep her clean, and keep it smart when you dive.
This is an aerial shot of Vortex. We are over the first dive platform and making our way to the swimming area. Divers and swimmers are required to use the piers to enter and exit the water to protect the shore areas.
There's plenty of parking and tables for divers to use to get their equipment together. The piers are well made and provide added safety.
We hope you've enjoyed this diving adventure at Vortex Springs at Ponce de Leon, Florida, and you have learned a little bit more to help you become an informed member of planet Earth.
Scuba Bob's Dive Club and Adventure is a club you can become a part of. Help us promote ocean conservation and healthy waterways. Discover new sea life and be a part of these exciting expeditions. Help in the production of these videos as we distribute them to the schools and classrooms of the world. Interviewing Sylvia Earle, she agreed with me that conservation has to start with children. To get involved, give us a call or send us an email. The white dolphin went into extinction in 2006 due to man's ignorance and greed.
It is our hope that you will see the importance for ocean conservation.